Welcome, fifth graders, to Compare and Contrast Day 3. Yesterday, 2 days ago, we worked with comparing and contrasting in a picture. Okay, remember we had two airplanes. Yesterday, we compared and contrasted, looking at comparing Mars and Earth. And today, we're going to continue with our exploration of comparing and contrasting with an article about immigration in the 1840s. But first, let's look at our learning targets for the day. You will identify comparisons and contrasts in a passage. You will identify and use the signal language for comparing and contrasting. You will determine important information in a passage. And then finally, you will use academic sentence frames to discuss strategies. All right, so when we talk about comparing and contrasting, let's kind of review the strategy. When authors compare, they tell how two or more things are alike. On the opposite side there, when they contrast, they tell how two or more things are different. Authors use signal words such as also, similar, both, and like to help readers identify comparisons. And to help identify contrasts, authors use signal words such as difference, but, however, and while. Now, remember, when we're talking about study questions and questions for Mr. Winkleman, one of the things that I want you to realize is that when you compare, you automatically contrast. So when you're filling out those answers for Mr. Winkleman, you're listing both similarities and differences. And at the same time, when I asked you to contrast, you cannot contrast without looking at similarities. So you're going to be listing similarities as well. Okay, so both either compare or contrast. You are listing similarities and differences. Sorry, I don't know if for some reason that was incredibly difficult for me to say. So let's look at our poster for today. Now, it's called Immigration in the 1840s. This is in your packet, and today we're going to practice reading and comparing and contrasting in the texts we're reading. Remember to use what you've learned. You can determine important text as you read to help you compare and contrast. Now, I want you to read this article, Immigrations in the 1840s. Now, if you are having problems reading, there is going to be another video under this video, and that is actually a copy of someone reading this this story. So if you having problems reading it, or you read it and you don't understand it, stop the video. Open up the second video, which is actually someone, not Mr. Winkleman, reading this article. As a matter of fact, it would probably be helpful for everyone to read this article. Okay? Now, once you have read this article, or listened to this article, read and listened, what I want you to do is I want you to, using the signal language, okay, signal language like most, both, also, like, for comparison, and difference, but, however, while, for contrast. And I want you to fill out the comparisons and the contrast section of this article in your packet. Okay, so at this point in time, you should probably pause the video, read or watch the other video, and then complete these two. Once you are done, we'll kind of walk through and look at what the book says that for comparisons and contrasts. All right, fifth graders, hopefully you have paused the video. You have now restarted the video, and this section here is complete, as is this section here. Now let's see what the book says that we should probably notice with immigration in the 1840s. For comparisons, we have a few here. In the early 1840s, most of the immigrants were from Ireland and Germany. Okay, that's taken from right here. Like the Irish, most German immigrants settled in the northeastern United States. That's right here, like the Irish, most German immigrants, okay? And then we have immigrants from both areas often settled in cities, okay? And here we have right here, immigrants from both countries often settled in cities. And I changed it from countries to areas just because I ran out of space. Okay, now let's review how you guys did with contrast. Okay, and I had to type rather small here because there's not a lot of room. Most Irish people went to the United States because they were poor and hungry. German immigrants, on the other hand, had money. Unlike the Irish, so unlike is saying that they're going to be different, um, who were mostly farmers, many German immigrants were shopkeepers and craft workers. Okay. And then finally, German immigrants were likely to open stores or work in craft positions such as carpentry. Many Irish, by contrast, worked in factories and in construction. So there you have kind of for each comparison, for the comparison and the contrast column, you have three. And notice that I bolded the words, the signal language for comparing. In this case, it was most, like, and both. And then the signal language for contrasting would be on the other hand, unlike, and by contrast. All right, so that's kind of what we're looking for today. Now what I'd like you to do, whoops, that didn't go where it wanted, there we go. There are four compare and contrast discussion questions that are listed in your pamphlet. Your weekly packet. The first one is, what kinds of texts compare and contrast information? Number two, would a fictional story ever compare and contrast things? Give an example. How? Okay. Might a descriptive essay compare and contrast information? And if it does, how or why? I guess you could answer that question as well. And then finally, why is it important to understand comparing and contrasting? All right. So that's kind of once you're done with that, you're done with your comprehension work for today. But let's just go through and let's just look at compare and contrast again. When authors compare, they tell how two or more things are alike. When authors contrast, they tell how two or more things are different. Authors use signal words such as also, similar, both, and like to help readers identify comparisons. And then authors use signal words such as difference, but, however, and while to help readers identify contrasts. All right, fifth graders, the one in closing, many authors of nonfiction texts explain ideas by comparing and contrasting information. Look for comparisons and contrasts today when you read in small groups. Determine the most important text to help you identify comparisons and contrasts. All right, so that's it for today. Tomorrow we will continue with our exploration of compare and contrast. All right, good work today.